Welcome to the Full Spectrum Warriors podcast. My name is Rich Graham, and today's episode is sponsored by Grunt Style, the American apparel brand. Joining us today is going to be Grant Miller. He is a Army veteran from the Canadian military, and we're going to be talking about psychedelics and faith. Interesting combination of topics, but we'll see how they come together. All right, Grant, welcome back to the Full Spectrum Warriors podcast.
Thank you for having me, Rich.
Yeah,
Good to be back in sunny Florida.
Yep. Great weather. It's wonderful here in the wintertime. A little brutal in the summer.
Yep, it sure is. It's always it's awesome coming out in like November, December, and then as soon as it gets to like June, July, it's pretty brutal. It gets sticky.
Yeah, I guess it's like the opposite too. The guys up north are like, I just want to get out of the cold.
Pretty much. That's everybody's like that. I mean,
yeah.
So,
well, if you guys missed it, on episode 40, we had Grant here prior, and in that episode, Grant basically told us a story about when he was in the Canadian Army and he was deployed to Afghanistan. And maybe you just want to, instead of me recapping it, do you just want to give us a recap? And then, I suggest you guys go back and listen to episode 40 if you haven't. It's a great conversation. Mm-hmm. But Grant, why don't you just give us a quick recap on what happened while you were on deployment to basically set the stage for what it is that you're doing now.
So I deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. We were in southern Kandahar. We were on a foot patrol. We set up an observation post. We were there for a couple hours, and once we tore down the observation post, we were walking back and on foot patrol hit a improvised explosive device. My point man, my fire team partner, Corporal Brian Pinkston, he died from his wounds a week later. I took shrapnel to my right lower leg, stomach, hand, took a head injury as well, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and chronic pain. And just going forward, I had a lot of issues for years, and trying to, because education is big for, it's big for me. Like, I wanted to go back to university and get a degree. It was initially in engineering, and I was told that I would never be able to do it either from doctors, and it was kind of like...
Because of the brain injury?
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck do you know? Kind of thing. And then after the first semester, it was like, this is going to be harder than I thought, because, short-term memory loss, like you're having difficulties concentrating, and mechanical engineering is not easy.
Yeah.
But I managed to push through. I finished 3 years, and then I switched to economics, and I graduated in taking time off here and there and doing and recuperating, and I graduated in 2021, and that's when I did I was just burnt out. I needed to go to rehab, or I needed some kind of therapy besides talk therapy. Because I found, I find with talk therapy, it's especially if you have your appointment is once a week or bi-weekly or once a month. What if you're not in the mood? What if you're having a great day and you just don't want to talk about, the traumas in your life, right? So, I was recommended to do ketamine assisted psychotherapy, which is a psychedelic, and when I did the treatment, it was a life-changing experience for me, because again with post-traumatic stress disorder, I think with that, when we're speaking in terms when it comes to veterans, there's a lot of different descriptions, and I've heard some veterans say that they've their spirit was broken, or for myself, I would say that others just parts of me that'll it just ripped pieces of me that will never be repaired kind of thing. Like that's kind of how I felt. Like this is kind of your life now. There's no going back. This is your new life. And when I first did psychedelics, I it was just I felt like a sense of like normalcy. Like I felt like myself again.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't even like I just after the first treatment, I was just like, oh, is that my journal? Like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to my hotel and just write out what what my trip was, if you will. And ever since then, I mean, my quality of life is significantly better. And I've been doing so I've done 6 treatments in 2021, and then I did 2 treatments every 6 months. And I've been just taking notes every day of like how I feel, how am I managing pain, so on and so forth, right? And I found, so I'll take I'll do 2 ketamine like assisted psychotherapy boosters every 6 months, and I find the week afterwards, like post treatment, like my quality of life's like, dude, I've never been happier in my entire life, and that's not even like like since Afghanistan. I mean, like I'm like my quality of life. It's really it's never better.
Yeah.
And I find like 5 months post treatment, it's like those like symptoms come back again of like like having difficulty like managing pain. My head's getting like waking up with like foggy brain, like having difficulty like concentrating and all that. So yeah, my last treatments were April of this year, and I traveled to Toronto, and I'm currently living in Canada's capital, Ottawa. But I traveled to Toronto to do the treatments, and I had meetings and just linking up with people and all that. So it was, you're traveling, but you're also doing treatments. So when I did the treatments, I kind of felt like, it's like situation, no change until I traveled back to Ottawa. I woke up the next morning, and I was like, man, like, you're feeling like just like stronger than I just felt like I was 23 again.
Oh wow.
And and I'm 37, and it's been 13 years since Afghanistan, but I was back to training as if I had no injuries at all, and I was lifting just as much as I did when I was training to go to war. So I was like, when we were doing workup training for Afghanistan, you train with your unit. So we do like 10-mile runs, typical PT.
Mm-hmm.
But on my off time, when I was training for Afghanistan, I'd swim laps and like lift, right? And yeah, like when you're getting back to, and it's 13 years later, and you're back to lifting just as much as you did, you're lifting just as much at 37 as you did at 23. You're swimming like just as fast and just as long as you did at 23. It's like, well, yeah, I would think like psychedelics have a lot to do with it because it changes your perspective on everything.
So is that a mentality thing, or is there actually physical healing in where you had those injuries?
So I think that when you're trying to manage like pain all the time, like traumatic brain injury and PTSD, it's overwhelming as is. So if you have like just putting more on your plate, it's very difficult to manage. However, if you're taking psychedelics for PTSD and that's managed, and like you're like clear-minded with that with having a traumatic brain injury, and all you have to do is manage pain, it's not a lot on your plate at all in comparison, right? So I think that's kind of my theory about it. I might be wrong.
So the psychedelics aren't actually healing physical injuries. It's just putting you in a state of mind that helps you handle the physical injury.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So
now, I know this is in Canada, and Canada and America have different setups
Mhm.
as far as healthcare goes and everything. But when you're going through these original treatment and then the follow-up booster treatments or
Yeah.
the continuous, just supplementation of it or whatever,
Mhm.
is that something that you're paying through your pocket? Is your healthcare covering that? Is that being funded through a charity? How do you go about that?
So VA was covering it, and I think they were covering it in a trial basis. And as of 2 weeks ago, because it's they denied my treatments, and it was very weird how that came to be, because it's like they're like, oh well, we're not gonna we're gonna deny your treatments. It's like, okay. And it was a registered nurse who wrote that, like, it was I'm not gonna name drop, but she works with VA. And I was like, okay, my psychologist, who I've been under his care for 6 years, he wrote a letter saying that this is a life-changing, like, treatment for me, where, like, he would have to he would have to treat me like less, because I'm kind of wasting his time if it's like if I come in like, what do you want to talk about today? And we talk about stuff that's like, this isn't what, like, it's not like, I can treat you if you're already treated. Like, it seems like you are doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of, and it's not so much like we're wasting each other's time, but it's like, I feel great, man. Like, I can't, what is it you want to talk about? Like, I'm having a great day.
Yeah.
It's so, but he wrote a letter to VA saying this is a life-changing treatment. He should be doing this, like twice, like 2 treatments every 6 months. My family doctor, I've been under his care since 2015. He also wrote a letter saying the exact same thing. The nurse practitioner from the clinic where I'm administering or getting these treatments administered wrote she wrote the exact same letter. So it's like 2 doctors and a nurse practitioner against, and it's nothing. I'm not taking anything away from, like, registered nurses. Like, I mean, I fully support anybody in the healthcare system, because I mean, they take care of us, right?
Yeah.
But you don't really have a lot to stand on when there's 2 doctors and a nurse practitioner saying that we're treating this guy. These treatments are changing his life in a very positive way. So you just like who are you to say no? You know what I mean?
So what happens then? Do you have to pay out of your pocket?
That's why I said, as of 2 weeks ago, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go down to Florida for a conference and spend some time down there, and let's see. Like, we'll sort this out when I get back, because, dude, I sacrificed a lot, and any taxpayer, like any Canadian I've talked to, are like, I don't understand what the problem is. Like, I don't have a problem for my tax-paying dollars to go towards you getting treatments. Like, I don't really, like, what am I missing here? It's like, exactly.
What are the treatments cost on the open market?
It was $4,400. So it's like, I'd rather, like, I could pay it, but it's like,
that's expensive.
And it's pretty pricey.
So if you're doing that twice every 6 months, mm-hmm. the longer you do it, do you have to do more treatments, or does it not work like that?
What do you mean?
Like, if you start off with the one initial, and then you're doing 2 treatments in 6 months, mm-hmm. later on in 3 years, 4 years from now, do you need to do 4 treatments in 6 months, or?
So, initially, when you do the treatments, you do 6 treatments.
Okay.
And I found for myself, because I've been doing these treatments now for like 2.5 years, mm-hmm. I found, and I know everybody's different who do these treatments. I found with myself, by the 5th month post treatment, it's like, maybe I should make 2 booster appointments for that 6 months, because like all the symptoms from PTSD and mild, like, traumatic brain injuries and just like, and managing pains, like, it starts like to come back a bit by month 5. Then by month 6, it's like, okay, well, you're getting your treatment and all that. I'm on month 7 post treatment, so it's like, I would like to get these treatments, please. That
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yeah. That's interesting. I had another guest on, another SEAL buddy, Anthony Riviera, and he went through Marcus Capone's charity down to Mexico and went through one of the similar. I don't know if it's the same.
Ayahuasca.
It might be. Yeah, he talked about it on, I forget the number episode it was that he was on here, but he had basically said that he found or got reconnected to what it meant to love, and he said that basically like he came out of there going, I've essentially not been taking or appreciating my wife and my kids and how much I love them and what it means to be a family. And basically he was able to rekindle and better communicate his emotions to his family and all that kind of stuff coming out of it. Did you experience something similar? Or
so I was at the Psychedelic conference in Miami right before last week before I came here, and I talked to a couple of veterans who were with Heroic Hearts Project, and it's very like I love talking with other veterans who've also done the treatments and like what they benefited from it, because I also experienced like I hadn't like when it came to like feelings and all that's like I didn't really have any after tour. It was like either anger, pretty much a lot of it was just anger, but like the like loving, just like actually having other feelings, that definitely came back in my life after doing those treatments. And it's very, very interesting. So
one of my big questions early on, and it's still kind of the question today, I'm now that more people are utilizing the psychedelic treatments and stuff like that, when everyone started doing it, even like guys like Joe Rogan be like, this is the fix. And my question to them was, okay, you go and have this experience and you get realigned, but how does that change your lifestyle? Because a lot of the issues that we have are based on patterns, decisions, right? The way we communicate with others, like what our patterns are, the things that we do regularly shape, our lifestyle. The decisions we make that are good or bad, give us the results and set up like the direction of our lives. And I forget what the third one I just said was, but also like our value system and all that kind of stuff. So how do you find that going through the psychedelic treatment then does a lifestyle course correction on the actual practical application side of your life, that a lot of the self-inflicted turmoil based on our lifestyle choices, how does that correct itself? Or is that something you get coaching for in addition to the treatment?
What I've noticed, like I've had since post Afghanistan, I mean, I've had like problems with alcohol consumption, like drinking like heavily and all that. And I found, especially after, it's not that like I found like post treatment, I think it was like I didn't drink for 2 months after my last treatments. And I think I had like a couple of like cocktails on like Canada Day, but there's a huge difference between going for 1 beer and going for 10. Yeah. Right. So it's not that, it's not like, oh, I'll never drink alcohol ever again. It's like, there's a big difference between being like having, like being an alcoholic versus taking it and leaving it. You know what I mean? So, if you've had 1 drink in like you go out and socialize with friends and you have one drink and you get home and then you're up at 6 a.m. and that's a big difference between being hungover for 2 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like again with my with Charlie team, and what we do is I'm working with
Charlie Team's your company, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's his company that they're trying to get into the business of supplying this, right?
Yeah. So we take on clients that in between like treatments, we kind of like, and whatever the reason is for for why you're taking like psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. I've been working with a couple of individuals from the Canadian Mental Health Association and building plans around people like to keep you like on the like the kind of I wouldn't say like straight and narrow, but on the path and not to fall off it. And I have one of my clients, he he had like a lot of issues with just like drugs and drink and like alcohol consumption and all that, and kind of like keeping him like on the path post treatments of like and like kind of like a mentorship.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I think that's important because that was one of the big questions I had, where I kept seeing a lot of my team guy buddies, who I went through the training with way back in the day. I went on to my team, they went on to their team. I wound up getting out. Maybe they stayed in longer or whatever. And then now I'm seeing them come back, and they're going through these treatments, and they come out of it super excited.
Yeah.
And I'm just off in the distance going, I just don't understand how that but you help answer the question with that. So maybe it doesn't fix your alcoholism, but it makes it to where you just don't desire to drink.
No, like I'd rather.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I've had a couple of friends, like sociable friends in Ottawa, that like, oh, do you want to go out drinking? It's like, no, not really, man. Like I just like, well, why not? It's like my dog wakes me up at 6 a.m.
Yeah,
like it's not the same as having a child, but no, that dog is waking you up at 6 a.m. to go to the dog park and all that. And especially having with like Charlie team, that's the healthcare side of it. I'm also on the defense side of it with UAVs. So I have 2 startup companies.
Yep.
There's no such thing as a day off. Like my dog wakes me up at 6. We go to the dog park. I go to the gym. I do my work. Like I don't like my social life is definitely on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's up to every individual that like these tools with psychedelic assisted psychotherapy is like, it will help you accomplish whatever goals you have, but you have to write down what goal, like what is it that you want from this?
Yeah. Right? It's not the fix it switch. But it assists in you being able to function at a higher capacity.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my question, because there's a lot of guys who are coming out and they'd be like, this is the fix. And I wasn't in disbelief, but I just had a lot of questions where I was kind of like, because for me, I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that helped me fix some of these types of issues, but again, this stuff doesn't necessarily fix like traumatic brain injury, right? But not what you're talking about, but what I'm leading into was, I went through a program called Operation Restored Warrior.
Okay.
And this was like helping veterans with PTSD and all that stuff through spiritual healing. Okay. And through coming into connection with Christ. And for me, that was one of those things where you had like this, like this revamp, and you're like, you get like recharged or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's like, well, what do you do now? Yeah. And that's where it's kind of like, go into the book, mm-hmm. look into what the Bible says on how you should live your life. And there's this spiritual war in the background and this is how you should live your life. And if you do these things, right, and it kind of gave you marching orders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was one of the things, like, because I have a charity Homefront Canine Project and we do service dogs. And for a lot of veterans, they're like, oh yeah, man, if I just had a service dog, it would fix everything. Like my life would be better if I had a service dog. And I'm like, yeah, dude, your life will be better. But me giving you a dog isn't going to fix your shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it'll help soothe and nurture certain things, and it's going to expose some stuff, right? And with that exposure, we can focus in on it. But to think that you having a dog is going to fix you, you know what I mean? Like, you got some freaking work to do, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, you got to take some ownership of this, and you got to put in some time.
Yeah.
And that, I guess that's what you're saying, though, you're doing, though, with your mentorship program.
Yeah. So, and with the documentary.
Yeah.
So I'm working with a screenplay writer, because it was kind of like, all right, maybe I need somebody with a bit more experience writing.
Yeah.
Because with the way we're doing a documentary, it's scripted.
Okay, tell us about the documentary.
So it's a 10-part series, and it's going to be on the website that we're launching just before Christmas. That's the deadline.
Okay.
So it's a 10 episode, 10 minutes per episode, on just how psychedelics have really changed my life, and a lot of the struggles that I went through, like post tour or post Afghanistan, but also how is this relevant to every community in our society, right? Because trauma is trauma at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And again, like I've worked with like athletes and like people who've had trauma where I'm like, and they've told me their problems where I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, Matt. Like, that's way, like, somebody who, like, like a female who's been, like, sexually assaulted. It's like, I don't know what to tell, you know what I mean? It's like, trauma is trauma.
Yeah.
Right? And how with psychedelics, again, it's like, I'm not pushing psychedelic therapy on anybody. It's like, if you had trauma in your life and your quality of life, it's great and everything's going awesome, couldn't be happier for you. But I could tell you that in parts of my life, like I remember it was my 25th birthday. Yeah. And I was like, am I going to live to see 26? I don't know, dude. I really don't. And it was like, because when it came to none of the therapies were working for me. And I was like, I just felt like I had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So with psychedelic assisted therapies, it's just one more option, right? So if you tried so many different treatments and none of them worked, well, maybe this might be for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the documentary is going to be covering your story with the people who've been coming through your program, or it's going to be 10 stories reflecting on your process? Yeah,
so it's a bit of both.
Okay.
So it's just starting off while we're doing the trailer, and so when it came to and I have a little, like with both companies, I have a lot of good people around me who will be brutally honest with me of like what my expectations are, and they're like, you got to lower your expectations, because an hour and 40-minute long documentary, because it's 10 episodes, 10 minutes, it's not going to be done by Christmas. It might take you 2 years, but that's why you do an episode to episode like documentary. And we have like a lot of the material done, but it's like you are making a documentary that with an ever-growing like industry, and there's so many changes that maybe you should just take it one episode at a time. But yeah, an hour and 40-minute documentary.
Oh yeah, there's it's not so much.
And I have a different respect for people in the film industry of like how much work.
Dude, I've had companies come out here to the ranch to do product commercials. Like for example, we had Steiner out here, and we filmed their commercial for their new little MPS red dot that goes on pistols. It can mount on a rifle too, but it's mainly for pistols. But dude, we were out here for like 2 days filming. We were on the range. We were rolling around in mud puddles, wrestling in the sand and just doing all this stuff, doing some CQB through the barn and getting all these different shots. And dude, we filmed for literally 2 days. And how
long was the commercial?
You would think that we were doing a full blown freaking movie. Like this is going to be like a 4-hour movie. Mm-hmm. And the commercial is like 1 minute to 90 seconds, depending on which one you have. And it came out great, like all the little shots, but it's like you go run through a CQB situation or scenario like 10 times to pull 2 little 5-second shots, which look epic, but like, you know what I mean? It's a whole lot of work, and in the post-production is really the time-consuming part because you have the filming part.
With the editing, I was just about to say that. I think the kind of like, I wouldn't say like the rule of like thumb, but like the whole, in theory, it's like 1 minute of shooting is like 4 minutes of editing when it comes to how much time is put into it. So it's like, your documentary is not going to be done by Christmas. If you wanted the quality that you want, it's not going to be done. It's not.
I'm falling into the same thing right now. I've been writing my book for over a year now, and it's just like between work and life, and then you get a day off to go write. You know what I mean? Like, cool, I'm going to go write, and then you sit there, and it's like
writer's block.
You're not in the mindset. You know what I mean? So sometimes it takes me like a couple of days to get, sit there, read scripture, write down bullet points, think on the stuff, put down some ideas, to just jump back. So like some of these things that and a lot of times, anytime you're doing something that's a creative work, like sometimes it just takes more time. Like in theory or in concept, you're like, we'll just knock it out.
It's
it's
not that easy.
And then especially when you're doing something like a production like that, because there's a lot of moving parts between having the people who are in the video versus the people on staff who are doing sound and lighting and this and that, like the whole production team, you have to work around their schedule too. So it becomes,
it's a massive project.
But that's funny, like having unrealistic expectations. I remember our mid-range shooting deck, the platform that you were up on with us yesterday when we were shooting for a little bit. In my head, we were going to build that deck. So if you guys haven't seen this deck, it's 16 feet wide. It's 50 feet long or 48 feet long. And it sits like 11 to 12 feet up off the ground. It's a big deck. And it's so we can see across our lake here and shoot precision rifle like at distance from like 300 to 600. But like, so in my mind, building a deck is no big deal. Yeah, we'll just knock this thing out.
Yeah.
But not realizing the complexity to building a deck that's 12 feet off the ground. Like, I thought we were going to knock this out in like 2 to 4 days. Dude, we worked on this thing off and on for like 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
It took us 2 days just to put in the telephone poles, to frame the thing. You know what I mean? And that we almost killed ourselves like 10 times doing that. Because we didn't have a crane. We were trying to do it with a tractor and like hooking it up with a chain in the middle of the pole and like trying to tip it and just totally jerry rigging it. It was like redneck engineering. It was really dangerous.
My colleague who does my my marketing, she was like, "So how's the screenplay writing going?" And it's like, I'm really like playing with my dog. It's not going well. She's like, do you realize you don't have to do all this yourself, right? Like, if you think about it like this, would you rather this consume all your time, or you can pay somebody else to do it, and somebody who actually has experience with writing scripts and screenplay writing? I was like, it's probably a better idea.
Yeah.
And I interviewed a couple screenplay writers, and there was one that a person that great fit. I was like, it's like, here you go. It's like it's a lot better idea than me writing it. It's like I could do it, but it would take a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm running into.
Yeah.
I've had friends be like, dude, why don't you just use AI? I'm like, I'm not using AI to write my fucking book. You know what I mean? Especially for mine, because it's not a story. It's more of like, I would say it would probably fall in like a spiritual self-help book category-ish. So for me to write something that's spiritually based, I feel like it needs to be coming from an intimate conversation between God and myself, and not putting it up to the fucking computers to interpret what God's word is and then interject that into the book. But when you sit down and try to do creative stuff like that, it takes a while, and it's hard because when you still have to go to work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't just be like, all right, yeah, I get paid regardless I'm going to work or not. I have all the free time in the world just to sit here and do it. So I'm sure that's something that you're having to work around too, of finding when is the time that we actually go and do this and whatnot.
Absolutely. I thought that when we were initially shooting the documentary, I was like, well, a lot of it we could just wing it. Like, yeah. And it was like, no, we're not. What do you mean we're going to wing it? Like, for when you have to have like it's 10-minute episodes, right? Mm-hmm. So no, you can't just wing it and then edit it. Like, you have to have it scripted of what you're going to say. So, it's all about like timing, and then you have to like, and so on and so forth. It's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that makes sense. So,
yeah, because otherwise you're not going to fit it in 10 minutes.
No. I mean,
I tried that the other day. I was like, I filmed a video on Veterans Day, and it was really long-winded. Mm-hmm. And I had this idea that I'm going to go sit in the cold plunge, and I can't get out of the cold plunge until I finish my thought. Mm-hmm. And I tried recording it again, thinking it would help me, motivate me to hurry up and get to the point. And then what happened was, instead of doing getting to the point, I wound up doing a 10.5-minute cold plunge dip. Yeah, it's just as long-winded because
So is that the coldest? Is that the coldest that cold plunge gets? Is 40 degrees or?
Well, don't get me started on the freaking cold plunge, but it's supposed to go down to 37.
Okay, I was like, it's 26 Fahrenheit in Canada right
now. Yeah, it's supposed to go down to 37. I've gotten it down to 40 degrees, which was really cold. Like, it made my feet cramp. But I literally had to run the thing at full blast for almost 3 days straight to get it there. So normally it winds up being right around 50 degrees. Mm-hmm. It's just like, it'll get down to 50 in 17 hours or so.
Oh, okay.
But it's supposed to do it in 4. It's supposed to go down to 37 degrees from like 70 in 4 hours. But, it's either mine's not working right or it's bullshit marketing, probably leaning toward that.
Yeah.
But,
might be.
But yeah, I mean, especially when you're trying to do a commercial or a video like that, and you have a very tight time frame, you have to say the least amount that you can to get the point across.
Yeah, that's the other thing where it was like, this is over my head, man. Because like, if someone's watching like a video, like, for one, if it's an hour and 40 minutes long, it's like, they're not. Yeah. It's like, probably not, but if it's like 10 minutes and it's like broken into 3 different videos, and in those like 10 seconds of the opening video, like, you have to get that person's attention.
And I think that, not to go on a political conversation, but like, I think that was one of the things that Trump really mastered.
Yeah.
Marketing, like, from a marketing strategy, like, he freaking owned Twitter because he got really good at putting out what his thoughts were in a tweet in one sentence. And it's like, people will ask me, Rich, what's your elevator pitch for Full Spectrum Warrior? I'm like, dude, you got 15 minutes? Like, I can't give you a 2-sentence blurb about what the Full Spectrum Warrior lifestyle is. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I wish I could. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm working on it. You know what I mean? But some people are really good at communicating like that in that very short forum direct, messaging. And that's what you want, especially if you're going to do like a 10-minute video to really drive your message home. Like, so it's probably good that you went with a writing team for that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like one of the many projects that we have going on. So it's nice to free myself up for other projects. So, but yeah, when people ask me what it is, like, what does Charlie Team do? It's like, well, we save lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's we're in the business of saving lives, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, elaborate. I was like, dude, well, do you have 10 minutes? Or,
yeah, there you go.
So, or like, we're going to grab lunch or so. But yeah, that's you have to have your elevator pitch for sure.
Yep. So let's talk briefly on last night by the fire when we were having a chat. You were saying that through the psychedelics, you basically were able to kind of get a little bit reconnected spiritually.
Yeah.
Explain to me how that works. Where were you before and where were you after versus where you are now?
I think, especially, I mean, I wasn't like my family is like religious.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I went to church and all that. And I just kind of wasn't religious,
mm-hmm.
Going into, teenage years and joining the military and all that. Then when I was in Afghanistan, I mean, I see what religion does to people, and then I really shied away from it. And then when
expand on that thought a little bit.
What's that?
When you saw what religion does to people, it made you shy away.
Well, I mean, with like Taliban insurgents and all that, it's just like I would like I have like and was like it's not so much like I didn't have faith at all.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of like I'm under the impression that like if you die, nothing happens. I mean, you're dead.
Meat,
you're dead, right?
A pile of meat,
pretty much. And but when I started taking psychedelics, I was like, well, I would like to believe that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not like there's a difference between having being like religious and having faith.
Yeah.
And being spiritual.
Well, and religion is something that is a man-made practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even if we look at the Bible or whatever,
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Jesus didn't say, if you want to play music, it has to be with these types of instruments. If you want to do this, it needs to be like this.
Yeah.
What he did say was a good example of a prayer would be the Lord's Prayer. And he gave an example of the Lord's Prayer of when you pray, you should pray something like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But people create rituals.
So that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's where religion is because religion is a practice, but it's a lot of it's man-made or left up to man's interpretation of how something should be practiced. Just like a dress code, we have an idea of what you should wear to be appropriate, or how you should use silverware. Yeah. And in what order, which spoon and fork goes which thing, you know what I mean? And like all that etiquette, but that's all through customs and, that.
So that was a new tradition that I had, like my dog and I had before we go to the dog park. Like, all right, Brady, let us pray. And I'll like just sit my hands like this, not like folded, but like thumbs pressing against each other and fingers like, all right, our Father who art in heaven. And then it's like, as long as the prayer is going on. It's like we're just getting them psyched up, and then it's like, all right, forever, amen. All right, let's go get them. But it's like more of like being grateful, not praying for anything. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like I have everything that like I'm very content with my life right now, and not like just, and just being grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I know with Charlie Team, it's like, well, the only thing that could tear down Charlie Team is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would anybody, like, if you're here to help and when it comes to, psychedelics, or when it comes to, like, drones it was initially defense, but now it's like, well, drones are in every industry now, right?
Yeah.
So, again, it's like you're just like, I'm here to help, so why would anybody get in your way?
Oh,
Really?
People will.
Well, we'll see.
They will. This is the world. This is the way the world operates.
Yeah. But if you're getting in the way, then it's like, all right, good luck, man. Well,
yeah. No, that's where you just gotta outwork, outwit.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Pretty resilient.
Yeah. So how did you find the psychedelics helped you reconnect to faith?
That is a good question. I think that with psychedelics, it made me like open, just more like open to like new ideas, new like hobbies, just trying out like different things, right? So I mean, I think in life, if you're not constantly learning, then I mean, like so
yeah,
it's just trying to just learn new things, what works, what doesn't. So
yeah, I remember battling the whole part where I didn't buy into religion and I was being rebellious against religion, and I thought people in the church were hypocrites. I thought the pastors were pedophiles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, were there pastors that were pedophiles? Yeah. Does that make all of them pedophiles? No. But I put so much of my success on my own shoulders.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to give any of that up to other people or to authority. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha.
And I thought all these people were a bunch of hypocrites and whatnot. And I had a friend who challenged me on something because he's like, dude, I agree with what you're saying. And he had a Bible that had everything that Jesus said in red. And he hands me the Bible. He goes, here, open this, check this Bible out. It's pretty cool. Everything Jesus said here is in red. He's like, let's find where Jesus said that pastors should molest little boys or little kids. Show me in here where it says that you should commit adultery and it's okay. Show me where, it says it's okay to, do this or whatever it was that I was pissed off about.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll save you some time and we can read through it. But he's like, Jesus called out the Pharisees and the religious leaders probably more than the general sinners because they were trying to claim that they were, these holy endowed people, but yet they were living, they were being hypocritical, and he was like, if you read through this, you'll find that you have way more in common with what Jesus was saying than what you think. So you have to be able to separate the man's, constructed laws or rituals from what God is actually saying and messaging, because most of that stuff doesn't line up.
Yeah, my big thing was like, really, man, I gotta go over there and pray, but I can't pray here. Come on.
Yeah.
But it's like, where does I don't think I've ever read the Bible to be honest. But I don't know if there's anything in the Bible that says, well, you have to go to church.
No, well, it says where two or more gather in my name, that's church.
Oh,
but it also says through Jesus coming, right, through God coming in the form of man and then offering himself up for our sins, right?
Yeah.
Like Jesus legitimately says that I could just fight back and not die. And people will say, if God's so loving, why did he kill his son?
Yeah. And
Jesus, in his own words, again, if you read it, the red print, in his words, he says, I give myself, right? And that we all know that one scripture that love has no greater love than lay down your life for your friends. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's literally what he's saying he did for us.
Yeah.
And through that, we have connection through what we were talking about last night with the Holy Spirit. So beforehand, right, the Jewish people, the people of Abraham, right, were the people of God. But through Jesus, God opened up his kingdom to everyone else as well. So the Jews still have their practice, right? But through Jesus, it opens it up to all the other people.
Yeah.
But that's where the connection comes through, is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So, but going back to like And like taking like before taking psychedelics, like I always thought to myself, it's like, well, what do you believe in? Like,
Yeah.
I don't believe in anything. Like, really? You don't believe in anything? It's like you have to believe in something. You have to have like faith in something because, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's I believe there's something out there. I would like to, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But faith, a lot of times faith is a process too.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you go through phases of faith where it's like people might start off with, you know, going to church and you're told about this and you're like, well, that's just what I was always told. And then you get into your teenage years, and a lot of times in your teenage years, you start questioning authority. You start trying to think for yourself and all this kind of stuff. And then you go into a phase to where it's like, I don't believe in anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I was there. And then I kind of went into like, I think there might be something. I just don't know what it is. And you're in this like agnostic phase of there's probably something out there. I just don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's the God that they told me about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's actually in my opinion, that's a good position to be in because it's a stepping stone. It's a starting block.
Yeah.
And you're at least acknowledging that there could be something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you kind of go into the pessimistic phase of, you know, where you start blaming, you're like, I don't believe in God, but then when something bad happens, you blame God. But I thought you didn't believe in God.
It's like,
you know what I mean?
I mentioned on our last podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're like an atheist, and especially in times of severe adversity, it's like, oh, you're going to pray for something. Like,
yeah.
And there was one point in Afghanistan we were getting it was like a rocket attack, and yeah, it's like and there was somebody who like was an atheist for was like, it's like, dear God. It's like, dear what? I thought you said. So
yeah,
it's I find if you're going through severe or extreme adversity in your life, you're definitely going to be praying for someone.
So it's a process. I think from there, people shift into something I would call like convenient faith.
Yeah.
to where it's like, yeah, I go to church on Christmas, or I pray when I need something.
Yeah.
When everything's good, I don't need God in my life. Then things go bad, and you're like, God, come help me. You know what I mean? It's the convenient faith, and then you get into more of like a consistent faith to where you have a daily practice. You are being grateful all the time.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing too. I've heard this on it was like one of those like Instagram like stories that or clips I should say, and it's like you do realize that if you're like when you're grateful, like that's when good things happen, you know, and once you because that's what like if you're in like constantly times of like desperation, you're praying that something good is going to happen. It's like, it's probably like, you know, it'll work out. Like it's going to work out one way or another, but yeah, like in times when, you know, things are going good, it's like, yeah, you should be grateful for that. So it's, but yeah, if you're,
well, the way the world works a lot of times, especially with immediate gratification kind of mentality that is being driven into the society with all the tech and everything like that.
Yeah.
Is there used to be a saying called priming the pump. And, you know, when you had one of those old hand pump wells, like you had to pump the handle. You might be pumping that thing for 5-10 minutes, just getting after it to create the suction to get the water to come all the way up that pipe.
Yeah.
And then once you get that pipe going, it just keeps flowing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of times with faith, people have the attitude of when that spigot starts pouring out water, I'll believe the well works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you have to prime the pump, and you pump it and you pump it and you pump it. And you're like, I don't see anything coming out. You just got to keep pumping. You're like, you have to believe that if I pump, the water will come. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times we're so short-minded or so, what's the word I'm looking for? again, just with that immediate gratification and that, show me mentality, like I need to see to believe. Well, if you have to see to believe, then there is no faith.
Yeah.
Because faith is believing in the unseen,
Mm-hmm.
as if you had seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I forget that old story. We were talking about that last night too. Of like the farmer whose like horses ran away, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's terrible."
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, it's a good one. Tell that again. That was a cool story.
It's a a farmer, his all of his horses escape and run off, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's terrible." And that they come back with a herd of horses, and then one of the horses breaks his kid's leg, and they're like, "Oh, like that's terrible." And he's like, "Oh, maybe." And then there's a war going on, and the military starts drafting people, and they can't take his son because his leg is broken. Just like, yeah, it might be, and the whole point is, like it might be, you might be going through a shitty situation, but it's not going to be, it might end up being like the worst parts of your life could be preparing you for something that, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, for real. And we need hard times in our lives.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Adversity.
You have to have adversity. And that's one of the things too, is like, going on that same topic of faith, is time. Like, we all want to know everything right now, but it's like time gives us perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so many things that are happening in our lives right now that we just don't have the perspective on, you know what I mean? Because we don't have that 30,000 foot view of what's below us. You know what I mean? When you're standing on the ground, you can't see everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like when we seem to think that we've had a dead end, or our troubles, like the thing we were talking about in that story with the kid breaking his leg, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible. His leg broken. We feel so bad for him."
Like,
maybe. Time gives perspective, and you go, "Wow, he would have been drafted, but his leg was broken." And this and that, but you just don't know. And that's, again, like having faith in all that, is like there's more at play, and we can't micromanage all this stuff. Some of this stuff we just have to have faith that that it's going to work out, if we make the right decisions, and if we're obedient to the law and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. I've had a couple guys wind up going through that I've been just watching and just listening to their experiences of them coming through the psychotherapy, basically getting like a mental reset, understanding what love means again, right? And like basically having a closed off heart, basically having that heart back open again. And having that lead them back into a form of faith. And then it's been really cool to see where that winds up taking them, and how God winds up working in their lives once they're able to receive the message again. You know what I mean?
I was going to mention one of my trips that I had.
And
it was my second last ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, like booster. And it took me like a minute for like, why did I trip to this? And it was the summer before I deployed to Afghanistan. I was on my recon course.
Yeah.
And it was fucking getting eaten alive by flies, sleep deprived, like that, like, and carrying was like 100 plus on your back, right, or 100 plus pounds. And I remember thinking at the time, it's like fuck this, like this sucks, and And then, but that was my trip. But it was like, there was a peacefulness to it with my hallucination. And it was like, what was the point of that trip? It's like, because at the time, like, that was one of the best summers you ever had. And it was just because you're going through adversity. It's like, well, it could always be worse, because the following summer, that was nothing will ever be the same for you ever again, kind of thing, right? So it's that's the thing with time and perspective. But yeah, it took me a minute, like after the trip, like why did I? And then when I talked to like the therapist, like oh, I think this was. It's like it just gives you perspective of like if you're going through adversity, like even right now, and you think that things aren't going to get better, or it's like well, it could always be worse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think that also brings us into, or not brings us into, but like that brings up the topic of hope.
Yeah.
If you have no faith that things will get better, if you have no faith that, if you don't have any faith that things will get better, then you have no hope. And if you have no hope, then you tend to give up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know people are like, hope doesn't fix problems. No, but hope does energize.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like hope fuels willpower.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you don't have willpower unless you don't keep fighting unless you think there's a chance that you can win.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And then sometimes you just know you're going to lose, like if it's a sporting event and there's no time left on the clock. You know what I mean? But at the same time, just as like a side thought, because I don't want to be double speaking, but hope makes you have willpower and drives you to keep going, right? And that it's worth the fight.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I've said before that, when you can't win, do you continue to fight all the way, like using a sports analogy, till the clock stops?
Yeah, pretty much.
And
that's the way that I've always been.
It's you go full bore until it's done.
Yeah.
But that's different because it's not different, but it still falls under faith and hope when you go, I fight all the way to the end because that's my character and that's who I am, and I'm not a quitter. And you never know who's in the stands watching.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And those people see something in you unlike they see in the other people on the field who quit. You know what I mean? And that drives something in you for building your own self-worth and all that kind of stuff. Right? So I don't want to double speak on that based on things that I've said prior, but just kind of talking about it in the form of hope and faith, without it, people tend to give up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
But yeah, man, definitely interesting conversation. It's really been wild to watch the different stories and experiences that people, I haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, I've been like on those sidelines and I just keep having more and more people come in front of me and go, yeah, man, I did the psychedelic treatment and it changed me. It reset me,
Yeah.
It rekindled things, it healed me, and it's just been really interesting to hear all the different perspectives of that.
It really is, just speaking with, and not just the veteran community, but like people who had like traumas in their life, and like how they talk about psychedelics and their experiences. It's definitely an interesting time when it comes to just the new way of treating mental health issues.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's cool. I'm really excited for your company and Charlie team, and I think that's a really important thing to do, because I think without the mentorship side of it, then I think it's a Band-Aid. I don't want to say it's a Band-Aid, but like, you know what I mean? Like if you don't have someone guiding you and bringing you through, like, cool, now you got to reset.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do with that? Let us help guide you through and help you make those life changes so you don't wind up back in the same position you were in, before you walked in here, in 30 days from now, and just go right back into your bad habits, you know?
I found that was the same thing with cannabis, like medical cannabis. I mean, I was, it's like, it is helpful. Do I want to smoke weed every day forever? No. Like it's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. There has to be, and again, it's person to person.
Yeah.
But it's not something I don't want to do it forever. But it is a great substitution for opiates or anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and all that. Like if I was coming out of a surgery, it's like, no, I'm just gonna pop a couple of THC pills if I'm in pain. Like I'm not going back. We're not going backwards. So, yeah, like so it's. But again, for anything long term, it's banded on a bullet wound, right? So
yeah, I was terrified of that stuff. The opioids when I had that surgery where they did the first rib resection and they cut through my armpit and they pulled my collarbone away from my ribs and cut that rib out.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, man, they gave me a 6-month prescription for the opioid painkillers.
Yeah.
And I had recently watched my brother go through back injury from surfing, and the doctor prescribed him that, and it was one of those things where it was like, once you're on that stuff, it's really hard to get off of it. It's
extremely hard, man.
You know what I mean? And so I was like,
it's like you're not even thinking logically when you're even coming off it. It's like you're not, it's like logic has exited the chat kind of thing. Like,
yeah.
And if people can, like, if you can make it through coming off of it, it's like fucking, it's like you're pretty lucky in comparison to a lot of people who didn't. You know what I mean? Like, and because the first time I had OxyContin was on the day that I was blown up.
Yeah.
And when people say like, so what does it feel like? It's like, well, it was the worst day of my life followed by the best day of my life, because it was, you're like, I was in that much pain that when they gave it to me through an IV, which is like, so what's that, heroin times 5? Like, yeah, pretty much. Like,
yeah.
But any nurses or doctors who are listening, and it's like, so OxyContin through your IV, yikes.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
And I was like, I remember I was kind of like in and out, and there's like different surgeons going on, like, as I was just like laid out on a table, and they were looking at all my injuries. And I was like, what's your job, buddy?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we're just explaining the surgeries that, like, and I was like, oh, okay, right on. How about you, bud? It's like, yeah, that's what OxyContin does, man. Like,
that's wild.
Going from like extreme pain to like, hey, like, yeah, that's a dangerous drug to be on. So
I didn't take any of mine. They told me, they're like, dude, if you don't take these, you're gonna wish you were dead. Like, the pain's gonna be so bad. And I was like, dude, I'm not getting addicted to these. So I threw them out. Apparently that's illegal. I didn't know that. I think I flushed them all down the toilet.
It's illegal. Oh,
yeah. I don't think you're supposed to do that. I didn't know. I got them out because I didn't want to take them. And I'm like, if they're here, I might take them. Yeah. You know, so I just got rid of them. And they're like, dude, when that morphine from the surgery wears off, then like you're going to be you're going to wish you were dead. And it sucked for like 3 days.
Yeah.
It was really bad. And then the dangerous part was like the taking shallow breaths because of the pain.
Oh, okay.
And then getting like pneumonia or like fluid in the lungs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's pretty complicated.
So they had this like tube with a ball in it that I had to like suck on this like mouthpiece and try to suck the ball up and like lift it up in this tube.
Oh, okay.
And each day it was like the goal was to get to a certain level on this little like scale of how high you could lift the ball, you know, to try to build that strength up in your lungs post-surgery. But so like the first 3 days I could barely breathe. And then my body started basically like building up some endorphins and stuff like that. And, you know, I was able to get through it just taking like Advil or some, you know, minor stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, but it's scary. Like I know a lot of people who have gotten really addicted to the painkillers and all that stuff. So, and that's why I was kind of curious to like, when you're talking about the psychedelics, like, okay, well, is this something that you take the first time and then you have a 6-month gap, and then the next time it's a 5-month gap, then it's a 4-month gap, and then it's something you have to take readily?
So, where it's like, again, it's in a like a therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for me, it's just twice every 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that. But yeah, it will never be, well, for myself anyways, haven't been like, oh yeah, like I want to do these treatments. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I feel great. And I found, and there are studies being done now of people who've had substance abuse, substance abuse issues, if psychedelics can treat that. And that's where I thought like it's possible in the sense of um, yeah, like even like consuming alcohol socially. It's like I just don't do it.
Hmm.
It's like I'd rather, and times where I went like 2 months about without consuming alcohol, where I just show up like, yeah, I'll get a ginger ale. Like nobody says anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I found when people consuming alcohol, it's like, yeah, if you're going out golfing, it's kind of like they find in a social setting that like there's like that social anxiety without it. It's like, dude, nobody gives a shit. Like if you
Yeah.
have friends that are judging you because you don't drink, then they shouldn't be your friends. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, but if you want to drink. But
Yeah.
like the whole social aspect of it is like nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to alcohol, it's there are some people, um, depending on like where you like in Canada, there are some spots that are like, well, alcohol's like not like that bad for you. It's like it's terrible. It's horrible for you. Like in comparison to other drugs, it's like what it does to your body. It's just fucking terrible. And coming off it, it's like there's a reason why hangovers exist and like what a hangover actually is. Like, yeah, it's just your body's extremely dehydrated. Like
Hmm.
your liver's just took a pounding. It's like it's pretty dangerous. So, but again,
It's interesting the things that they find legal and illegal.
oh, yeah,
You
pretty
know?
much. It's because even my dad. I mean, well, my dad's consumed alcohol is pretty much his whole life, and it's and his father before him. And I remember talking about like cannabis versus alcohol, and just what he was kind of like, it was like that stigma of like weed's bad for you. It's like, dude, I used to be like that too. Like I was kind of brainwashed in the military of like,
Mm.
oh, weed makes you lazy and all that. It's like I would. How many times have I gotten in trouble in anything with consuming cannabis? Never. It's never happened. Now, I'm not going to say every time I drank I've gotten into trouble, but every time I've gotten in trouble, I
Yeah, been
was
drinking.
I was yeah, pretty much. So I don't know if you're saying that
Yeah.
alcohol is better for you than cannabis, but I strongly disagree. However, too much of any drug is
Yeah.
bad for you. But if you're going to compare the two, come on, like
Yeah, it is. That is really interesting.
yeah,
The and that's been a very ongoing argument,
yeah,
with alcohol being probably one of the most, in general crimes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Not just people doing dumb stuff and getting in trouble, but like domestic abuse,
yeah,
child abuse, drunk driving,
yeah.
all sorts of stuff happens from alcohol, but it's such a big business,
Oh, it is.
and
Yeah,
it's so big, and it's such a big thing into the culture. People argue about different things where it's of like whether drugs should be illegal or not illegal, and certain things illegal, certain
yeah,
things not. I'm kind of more on the libertarian side, to where it's like I don't even know if the if the drugs themselves should necessarily be legal, but it's one of those things to where if you want to destroy yourself, like
yeah.
that's
It's
on you. But if you
yeah,
do something to someone else
yeah.
while you're on drugs, like you should pay a hefty,
What I read somewhere, I don't know what state it was, but if you let's just say if you were drinking or driving and you killed somebody's like if you kill somebody and they had kids, you have to pay child support for those kids pretty much until they're 18. I don't know what state it was or if that's true.
Yeah, yeah, I heard about that too.
Like that's well, that's a good thing to start. I mean, but it's like then it's also when they go to jail forever. So if they're going to or for a long time, then
how does that work if they're in jail?
It's like how would they pay child support if they're in jail?
It's tricky, but I just feel like they have different rules, and not to get into like government stuff, but like here, like some states will be like, oh, you can only have a knife that's this long, or you can't have a knife that has a blade on each edge, or you can't have a butterfly knife, or you can have a folding knife, but it can't be like a self-assisted one. It has to take two hands. Like everyone's got all these little things, and it's like, what are these rules for? Well, in case you don't go stab someone. Be like,
it's like somebody did something at once upon a time, and that's why this rule is here. Yeah,
and you're looking at the object, and it's like, okay, well, it's illegal to stab someone regardless if it's a gardening shovel or a knife or a pen. Like, you're not allowed. That's assault, right? Yeah. That's assault with a deadly weapon. So why are we nitpicking the thing? And I feel like that's what happens with a lot of this, a lot of the drug stuff, and it's like there's the crimes that are committed when people are trying to get money for drugs.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, if people are trying to get money for food, or they're trying to get money for drugs, or they're trying to get money for the fact that they're just turds and they're greedy or whatever, like, okay, well, their purpose behind it is what they're doing is still illegal. So what does it matter what their purpose is behind it? Like, it's still illegal. Yeah. Illegal's illegal. You know what I mean? Assaulting someone or stealing, theft is theft, burglary is burglary. Yeah. Regardless of what they're trying to get the money for, who cares? Yeah, you know what I mean? Sure. You know what I mean? But that's a whole other kind of tangent. But anyway, it is interesting to see how alcohol is so readily available and promoted and accepted, while something like, I don't drink or smoke, but just coming from someone who doesn't even drink or smoke, I'm just like, it is kind of interesting how you compare which things are acceptable and which aren't.
Well, it's like when alcohol prohibition in was it the 20s or 19?
Yeah, 20s or 30s or something like that.
Dude,
yeah,
people still drink anyway.
Yeah,
like it's like legal or illegal. It's people are going to drink or do drugs regardless, right? So it's definitely when it comes to government policies and all that, it's a slippery slope. Let's just say that.
Yep.
I mean,
well, I hope that your new company is successful, and I hope you keep impacting these veterans for the better.
And you as well, man.
Yeah. So any last thoughts you want to throw out there before we wrap up?
No, actually, I gotta get back. I gotta drop off the car and all that. So, thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back early next year. So
very cool. All right. Well, best of luck up there.
All right. Cheers.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's some good takeaways. Again, if you like the Full Spectrum Warriors podcast, please go ahead and subscribe to it. Help us beat the algorithm and share this with a friend. Let them in on our conversations. Again, you can check us out on fullspectrumwarriors.com for in-person or private training experiences. You can check out the online university on our website if you want to train with us from home. And again, today's episode was brought to you by Grunt Style. Grunt Style is America's leading apparel brand for military and law enforcement. Check out some of their cool designs. They have some great sales coming up for Christmas and Black Friday and all that. So again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again here soon.